Hey guys, my name is Cara and welcome back to Imagine with IlluminArt. Last week we did some warm-up roll downs and some breathing exercises, and then we moved into writing different types of poetry. So this week we're going to be doing some new movement exercises, and then we're going to do some creative writing. Just a reminder from last week, I personally love doing movement exercises right before I'm about to write because it helps to warm up the body and it gets us nice and focused. So today we're going to be doing some upper body stretching, and then we're going to move into some meditative breathing. Alright, so we're going to start with grounding ourselves. Feet go below the hips and roll around on your feet from the toes to the heels and find some balance. Then move to your knees. Bend and straighten them so they're not too extended and not too bent. Move to your hips and move them in a big circle first to the right. Now circle them to the left. In a few moments, find your center and take a deep breath. Enjoy the feeling of being balanced. Life seems to be quite off balance nowadays, so finding that balance within yourself can bring some kind of mental peace. Now clasp your hands and put them on the back of your head. You're going to feel a pull, so let your hands act as a weight. Next, you're going to slowly move your head to the right and feel the stretch all in the neck. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in again, and out. Keep breathing. Now slowly roll your head to the left and repeat the stretch. Breathe in, breathe out, and breathe in again, and out. Very nice. Now unclasp your hands and put your left ear to your left shoulder, raise your left hand and pull your head down. Again, allow yourself to feel that stretch. Let's take a couple of moments to take 2 deep breaths. If you want more of a stretch, allow yourself to raise your right hand up and make sure your palm is facing upwards. Great job, guys. Now let's repeat on the right side, right ear to your right shoulder, and put your right hand on your head. Gently pull down. Raise your left hand, palm to the sky, and take another moment to breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in again and breathe out. Now let's stretch our wrists. When we write or type on our computers, our wrists get very tired and need a good stretch. So let's grab our right wrist with our left hand, circle all around to the right, and then circle to the left. Now grab your left wrist and circle to the right, and then to the left. Next, put your hands in prayer position. Gently push your left hand back and feel that stretch in the upper part of your wrist. Great. Now push back on your right hand and enjoy that too. Next, put the backs of your hands on your hips. It's time to stretch the tops of your wrists, so gently press and feel the tension release a little bit. Don't press too hard. And hold it there for a few more seconds. Cool. So now that we moved around a little bit, let's get into breathing. This next technique we're going to learn is called Ocean's Breath, and it's a good exercise to use when you're feeling a little anxious or a little stressed. These are stressful times, so if you're feeling a bit overwhelmed, I think it's time that you start to take care of yourself. use this exercise to bring you back into the present so that you're more focused and a little less stressed. You can either sit in a chair or on the floor, and if you're on the floor, cross your legs like a pretzel. Now everyone close your eyes and pretend like you're on the beach. Do you hear the seagulls in the sky? Feel the warmth of the sun on your body. Do you smell the salts from the water? Picture the waves rolling onto the sand and then rolling back into the sea. Try and feel the rhythm of the tide. Now every time you picture the tide pulling the water back in, I want you guys to take a deep, long breath in, and then hold your breath for just a second. And when the water rolls back out, let out a very long exhale, and then hold it again. Keep breathing like this. The waves pull in, breathe in, and hold. The waves roll out, let out your breath, and hold. Take a moment to do this a couple of more times. When you are done, notice how quiet the mind is. And before you open up your eyes, think about one thing that you are grateful for today. So I hope everyone is feeling a little more relaxed. Now it's time for the real fun. Today we're going to be writing a creative short story. But before we get into that, we need to remember the important parts of a story. Sometimes it's relaxing to write a creative story and imagine yourself in another setting, especially when we've been in our houses for so long, with everything that's going on, things get a little mundane. So when you can imagine something, then that's really fun. It's really important to remember the elements that you would find in a story, right? Because actually you'll find them anywhere else. You'll find them in a novel, in a book, in a movie, maybe even in a game. I made a little list of all the elements and then a drawing that I will read these first to you guys. So the first thing that we come across in a story are the characters. Now, a character is some type of person with a certain type of trait, whether it's physical or it's a part of their personality, and we find this character in any type of story, right? There could be one or more. There could be a million if you want, but let's not make it too hard. Then we have the setting, which is really important. Why? It's because we're setting up the story. We have the time where the story takes place and the location of where the story takes place. Another thing to remember is the plot of the story. The plot means it's a list of all of the main events that happen. Now, a way to remember the main events is to think about what happens in the beginning, what happens in the middle, and what happens in the end. And then you have to think about what happens in between the beginning, middle, and end, right? So we have the rising action. We introduce the characters, we have a rising action, and when we have a rising action, we introduce a problem or a conflict. Then we have the climax of the story. Now, climax is very important because that's when all of the things that are happening lead up to a certain point, and it's called the highest point in the story. It's the most intense part. Maybe a fight finally breaks out. And then after the climax comes the falling action, and this is usually when you wrap things up, you tie all the loose ends together, and you find a resolution. Now, a resolution is usually the solution to the problem. A thing that is also important to remember is dialogue. Dialogue is a conversation that happens between two or more people. You can't have a dialogue with one person. That would be called a monologue, hence the word mono, and then a dialogue, die, which means two. Mono, one, die, two. We need to have a dialogue in your story. So maybe I say to my friend, "Hi, how are you?" And my friend says back to me, "I'm good, how are you?" That's considered a conversation, so that is a dialogue. Also, something that you might want to think about is having props or costumes in your story. While this isn't a play, because a play we would usually see in live theater, there are specific details that could help an audience member distinguish which character is which. Props is a type of object, that a certain character uses. A costume is a set of clothes that a specific character has on. The clothes can change if you want, it's up to you. Maybe there's a super cloak that, has superpowers and makes a character invisible. So I used the story of Little Red Riding Hood as an example of what your element chart could look like. We have the characters all the way to the left. We have Little Red Riding Hood, the wolf, and the grandma. And then we have the setting, which is in the forest and grandma's house. And then we have the plot. As you can see, I made a little story mountain. You guys can see the beginning, middle, and end, and what happens in between all of that. We see the rising action, the climax, and the falling action. And then on the bottom, on the left, you see the dialogue that happens between the wolf and Little Red Riding Hood. In the middle, you have the props that we come across in the story, like the axe that the lumberjack has, and the basket of bread that Little Red Riding Hood is bringing to her grandmother. And then, of course, the most important part, we have the red coat that Little Red Riding Hood wears. So now that we know what a creative story is made up of, I think it's time to draw and write our own creative story. I encourage you guys to draw a scene from the story that you make up and make sure that you label it with all of the elements that we discussed. It'll help you visualize what you want to talk about and how you want your story to end. Now, if you want, you can write your short story on the back of the drawing that you make or on the bottom of it. So you can use a computer paper like I did, and make sure that you have maybe some markers or colored pencils, anything that you want. So let's get writing and let's start drawing. Alright, so if you guys aren't done, that's totally okay, but I just want to read you guys what I wrote, and then I'm going to show you guys what I drew. What I did first is that I drew the characters and the setting and the story mountain that we discussed before, and it kind of helped me get into the story that I wanted to create, to fill in all the little details. So I will show you the drawing after I read you guys the story. One day, on the hottest day in July, a boy named Robert was playing hide and seek with his friend Mary. They were having fun in the forest that was behind Mary's house. It was Mary's turn to hide, so Robert counted 10 seconds and went to go find her. "Mary," he says, "Mary, where are you?" 5 minutes pass, 15 minutes pass, and he could not find Mary. He got so nervous, so he didn't know what to do. He ran to Mary's house and he told her parents of what happened. "I lost Mary! I lost Mary!" Mary's dad tried to calm Robert down. "Okay, don't worry, let's go and look for her." They brought a flashlight because it was starting to get dark. "Mary!" they called out. They kept repeating her name. All of a sudden, something caught Robert's eye. "Mary!" He pointed up to a very tall tree. Mary was on the highest branch, on the highest tree, and crying. "Robert," Mary's dad said, "run back to the house and ask Mary's mom for the ladder, quickly." So Robert ran back, grabbed the ladder, and found Mary's dad again. He put the ladder up against the tree, climbed up, put Mary in his arms, and brought her back down. "What happened, Mary?" her dad asked. "We were playing hide and seek, and I found this tree, and I climbed all the way up. I didn't realize how high it was, and I got so scared I couldn't even move. I'm so sorry." She cried again, and Robert hugged her. "I'm just so happy you're okay," he said. "How about we go back to the house, wash up, and eat some pizza? Maybe even roast some marshmallows," her dad said. The kids screamed and cheered, and they all went back to Mary's house and did just that. And soon the tallest tree was forgotten about as they laughed the night away. So I hope you guys liked the story. And now I'm going to show you what I drew right before I wrote. I named the story The Tallest Tree. I do encourage you guys to name your story so that it has some type of context. Then I began with the characters. I knew I wanted 2 friends, so I named them Robert and Mary, and then I figured Mary's dad should be involved. Then I moved on to the setting. Where should it be? So I figured it would be nice to have a house, perhaps Mary's house, in a field, and then there's a forest that Mary and Robert always play in. Maybe it's early evening, late afternoon, maybe it's right before dinner, and that's why they would have to use their flashlight when they would go find Mary. Then I, drew out a little story mountain so that I could picture the story in my head. So I figured start with the characters, introduce them, introduce the problem and how we're going to get to the climax. They find Mary, and then they grab the ladder and they help her out of the tree. And then at the end, they go and find some pizza and some marshmallows, and they have a better night. I wrote out some dialogue that I would like them to say, what happened, and Mary said, "I got scared, I couldn't move," right? She was so high up, maybe she had a fear of heights. Then I drew out the most important props, the ladder, which saves Mary, and then the flashlight, which they all use to also find her. And then costumes, I figured it was really late July, so they would need summer clothes. I don't know how to draw summer clothes, so I just wrote out summer clothes. If you guys are more artistic, I do encourage you guys to draw out the costumes that you'd want your characters to wear. So now that we are all done, if you want, you can present what you created to your family, or you can call up your friends and show them what you made. I'm sure you're going to inspire everyone around you to be a little more creative. If you want to show ImagineWithIlluminArt what you've created, below this video are all of the social media platforms that you can contact us on. Or if you want to put it on your own social media, make sure to use the hashtag ImagineWithIlluminArt. Alright, that's all for now. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, or subscribe to our channel and tell all of your friends about us. Until next time, see ya!